2023 is off to a promising start, with a JRPG based on a really good manga/anime in Piece Odyssey. This dropped on the 12th of January 2023, with copies available for all modern platforms aside from the Nintendo Switch. Odyssey uses Unreal Engine 4, and the overall aesthetic falls somewhere between hand-drawn anime and 3D modelling. The recreation of the One Piece world and the presentation of these characters is a large part of the draw. This art style is what matters the most, and I can happily report that it presents the Straw Hats and friends as true to the anime as was likely possible. There's also something uniquely functional about this choice, and as a result, the animation quality is a cut above what I was expecting. This adventure sees pirate Monkey D. Luffy and his crew washing ashore on an island, where they have their memories stolen from them by a girl named Lin. This is the tenuous plot device that sees the Straw Hats forgetting their most powerful attacks and returning to weakling status. Thus, they embark upon a quest to recover the fragments of their memories, and with those, their powers and abilities. Although the island the Straw Hats land on is the primary setting for the game, you are going to spend a lot of time away from it. To return larger memory cubes to the team, they must relive the memories that contain within them. This provides the convenient plot device for running through the Straw Hats' previous escapades. There are 4 of these in total, and each contains a different story arc from the series. For those who are familiar, these are the Alabasta, Water 7, Marineford and Dressrosa arcs. Normally I like to hit story and characters early on in my reviews, as I put a fair bit of weight on these components. Here that does feel quite redundant. We have over 1,000 episodes of the One Piece anime at this point, so evaluating these feels unnecessary. If they weren't well conceived and written, there's no way this franchise would be as enduring as it is. What it's perhaps better to say is that the characters here are presented true to themselves. No one is awkwardly forced into performing actions that don't fit with their pre-established personalities. This is helped by the Japanese voice actors for the anime all lending their tones to this game, which brings a level of authenticity that really helps with immersion. What you'll be doing for the most of this game is exploring and battling, with the occasional party at camp to restock and watch Luffy eat meat. This game uses a leveling system and an RPG stats system, with battles most adequately described as turn-based. Exploration takes place from a third-person vantage point, utilising winding maps and the occasional puzzle to vary up running from place to place. While on the field exploring, monsters and encounters are physicalised, and making contact triggers a battle. This drops you into combat where you control 4 members of Luffy's crew. Characters have HP and TP for using skills, and this is accumulated by striking enemies with regular attacks or using specific items and accessories. Everyone also has an attack type, which forms a rock, paper, scissors type triangle, where power is strong against technique, technique is strong against speed, and speed is strong against power. This is stacked upon top of regular attacks, items, skills, and powerful bond attacks. The unique mechanic here is the game's utilisation of areas. Each member of the Straw Hats enters battle placed in a specific area. These areas show proximity to enemies or a group of enemies and affect attack range. Members of Luffy's crew and the enemy's crew can move between areas using abilities and skills, and you can find some tactical advantage in this positioning. This becomes more important in boss fights, where you want to keep units with unfavourable type matchups out of the melee. The final addition here is perhaps best mentioned in regards to progression. As you expect, you gain experience from fighting and level up. This improves a character's base stats, which can further be augmented by equipping accessories. These are slotted onto a character and can be fused at camp later in the game to provide buffs and stats to grant additional effects. In general, this game is stingy when it comes to handing out XP at the end of fights. To compensate for this, you will occasionally be put in a scenario where you have a chance to gain a massive amount of XP. These come in the form of dynamic interactions, where you'll need to meet specific criteria such as delivering the final blow with a named character or defeating all the enemies in a specific area within a turn. It's these that allow you to accumulate huge chunks of XP that are required to level up quickly. This system seems to have been designed specifically to avoid the traditional grind mentality. It does not nullify that as a tactic, but it makes just playing through the game as a normal player fair and rewarding. Progression is well paced, save for 2 specific moments in-game which seem to feature leaps forward in enemy strength. The first could be described as the entry to the real game, as it happens in the desert of Alabasta, a few hours into the experience. The second takes place once you enter the Sky Tower, a late game dungeon. There are other systems in the game that feel like they've been implemented to achieve a similar goal of removing the grind. While exploring, each character has specific field abilities they can use, Zoro can cut bars and metal doors, while Luffy can reach faraway items and places. Two of the most useful of these are by Nami and Sanji, who can see unique types of collectible items on the floor. Exploring as Sanji lets you see cooking ingredients, while Nami's lets her spot bags of berries on the ground. This game also has a handful of quality of life features, but some of these land awkwardly and feel a touch undercooked. The game includes a sprint feature, but this is weak and as you can see barely increases your speed. This game does start painfully slow, with the tutorial section seemingly dragging right until the end of the Alabasta arc, which was about 8 hours into the game. Until this point you are given little in the way of freedom to move around and explore, and you can't travel very far until you're thrown into another cutscene or conversation. This does steadily improve, but these early interruptions to game flow may be enough to put enough people off entirely, particularly if you aren't already invested in this world. Another blow for some members of the Western audience is that there is no English dub of this game at all. There's also no autosave. If you die and get a game over, you're dropped back at the title screen and have to reload from the latest time you manually saved. This feels like a throwback to older JRPGs, but stands out as a missing feature in 2023. There's also been some unnecessary exaggeration of character models, specifically for Robin, Nami and Rebecca. These individuals are already proportioned to some form of inappropriate ideal within the anime, and it feels the height of unnecessary that these have further been emphasized for this game. Combat also has a speed up button, which is very necessary. For all of this game's positives, there is no setting to toggle animations off, and effective use of skills in combat can soon become a drag. If anything, I'd have had several stages of speed available to the player, as the current top speed still feels slow. There are also a few exploration animations that overstay their welcome. You can change lead characters a lot, particularly if you want to collect everything, and this switch feels like it has an unnecessary pause. Following a fast travel, you're locked in place for a few seconds while an animation plays. These are more minor annoyances that grind the game to a halt, and I was expecting more fluid gameplay, particularly by the end of the game when you just want to go around cleaning up side quests. I have no such complaints about the optional auto battle system though. This uses items smartly to keep your team alive, and it's also very good at not using skills wastefully. The spectacle of combat is also a strong plus. Enemy design is also excellent, as these entities feel like they're part of the One Piece universe. Nothing feels or looks out of place here. There are a few reskins towards the end of the game, but none of these feel unwelcome, as the overall model diversity is strong. This experience clocked in at around 30 hours for the main story, with an additional 15 for a completionist run. I believe that the overall difficulty here has been tuned for an intermediate audience. You'll have to use a few items now and again, and some of the enemies do feel a bit spongy, but if you can master the rock paper scissors system and switch your crew out effectively, you won't see any game over screens. The secret sauce to this game's success is undoubtedly the One Piece universe. It's graphically solid, backed up by excellent combat systems, voice acting, and character presentation. Failings in the game's pacing early on are likely to be the biggest deterrent, and there's a general sluggish pace to most of the game that may be off-putting for certain types of individuals. I was impressed with this as a whole though, and feel confident that I can recommend this to One Piece fans as well as fans of turn-based JRPGs. This is a strong start to 2023, and even with minor problems with pacing and missing quality of life features, there's nothing so egregious that it devalues the whole package. This is a strong addition to the JRPG roster, and gets 2023 off on the right foot where gaming's concerned.